Welcome everybody to this exciting final event of the Preventomics project. I am Josep del Vas, Principal Investigator of the project. With me, Biotza Gutiérrez, Coordinator of this project. And we will have the pleasure to accompany you through this plenary session and mainly this opening plenary. So let me start with today's program. We are having this plenary session in which we are going to have a quick overview of the project, then the keynote given by Professor José Ordovás. And after this, Biotza Gutiérrez is going to present us an overview of the different results of the project. We will have a break for coffee or tea, and followed by a roundtable in which we are going to discuss about biomarkers in personalized nutrition. Another break after that, and we will start with two different sessions. The first one about the digital tools that have been used in the project and developed in the project to empower personalized nutrition, and the second one in which we are going to have an overview of the different results of these tools, the use of these tools, and its deployment into real environments. So I must say, questions are open. You have a question box. Mention the name of the speaker, and should you have any technical problem, please contact info@preventomics.eu. So to start with, just a very brief introduction. Professor Ordovás, in his keynote, is going to talk about personalized nutrition with more in depth. We will see what is coming. But just to start with the question, why personalized nutrition? Because if we have a look to different terms related with this subject in PubMed, we find this increase of the interest in personalized nutrition. And if we look for precision nutrition, we see an exponential growth of scientific works in this field. But also, if we go into the main trends in the health and nutrition field, and also in the food and beverages business sector, we will see that personalized nutrition always pops up. So there is a real interest and growing interest in this subject. And this is because basically personalized nutrition is about health. Citing Professor Ordovás, Professor Lynette Ferguson, Professor Xiong Tai, and Professor John Matters in this paper published in BMJ, we know that dietary factors are well-recognized contributors to common diseases. But despite knowing this link between dietary patterns and disease, interventions to alter dietary habits and to improve public health and well-being have had limited impact. So it is thought that personalization of interventions may be more effective in changing behavior that will affect health outcomes. So this is the main reason of personalized nutrition. This is why we propose the project Preventomics, which stands for empowering consumers to prevent diet-related diseases through omics sciences. The main objective of this project is to improve the health status of individuals to developing personalized nutrition plans that combine phenotypic characterization at the metabolomic level with consumers' genotype, lifestyle, health status, and preferences. Preventomics will translate this information into personalized dietetic advice for the user, automatically generated and efficiently delivered by the use of ICT technologies. So, what's the main idea behind Preventomics? We know that different external factors, in this case mainly dietary habits, nutrition, physical activity, have an important impact on different overarching processes of our physiology, which we have classified as carbohydrate metabolism, lipid metabolism, inflammation, microbiota, and oxidative stress. And if this impact is sustained during the whole life, it gives place to the onset of different chronic diseases. So if we want to prevent these diseases, the first that we have to do is to modulate the dysregulations in these overarching processes so we can prevent the onset of diseases. Currently, omics sciences are providing us the tools to measure the current state of these different processes. So if we know what's the state, we can try to modulate it and to optimize the function of these processes by modulating external factors, such as dietary habits, nutrition, and physical activity. And this is the main idea behind the Preventomics project. But while having this overview, this glance to what the project is, now I'd like to go into the keynote. Today's keynote will be given by Professor José María Ordovás. It's a great pleasure for me, it's an honor to have you with us. I will present him. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning for us, I would say. I know this is not the case for you. It's quite late in Boston. So I will have an introduction for all of you to Professor José María Ordovás. He's Professor of Nutrition and Principal Scientist at the USDA-Human Nutrition Research Center on Aging at Tufts University in Boston, Massachusetts, where he is also Director of the Nutrition and Genomics Laboratory. In addition, he is Professor of Genetics and Pharmacology at the Faculty of Biomedical Sciences and also Director of Precision Nutrition and Obesity Program and leader of the Nutritional Genomics and Epigenomics Group at IMDA Food in Madrid. Dr. Ordovás was educated in Spain and completed his bachelor's degree in chemistry and received his PhD in biochemistry with postdoctoral work in MIT, in Harvard, and Tufts University. His main research interests focus on the genetic and epigenetic factors that predispose to age-related chronic diseases and their interaction with environmental and behavioral factors. He has published about 1,000 scientific articles in journals of the highest impact with an age index of 142 in 2% of the world scientists, written books and book chapters, and participated as a guest speaker at hundreds of conferences, symposiums, and related international courses with personalized nutrition. In this regard, he is considered a pioneer and one of the world's foremost experts on gene-diet interactions and precision nutrition. In addition, he has gained dozens of scientists in his laboratory, he has trained dozens of scientists in his laboratory, and his current network involves populations and researchers from all continents. So throughout his career, Dr. Ordovás has received multiple honors for his scientific achievements, including the USDA Secretary's Award and the Centrum David Krzyzewski, this is quite difficult, and mentoring awards from the Danone Institute of the American Society of Nutrition, in which he has achieved the highest degree of recognition as a fellow. In addition, among many other awards, he has received the gold medal from the Spanish Society of Cardiology and the Francisco Grande Award from the Mediterranean Diet Foundation. He is Doctor Honoris Causa in Medicine from the University of Córdoba in Spain and a member of the Royal Academies of Sciences, Medicine, Nutrition, and Pharmacy of Spain. He has served on the Food and Nutrition Board of the National Academies and the FDA National Poison Center Advisory Committee, and currently serves on several national and international steering committees, scientific peer review committees, advisory, and editorial. So thank you very much, Professor Ordovás. It's a real pleasure to have you here with this outstanding presentation about what's precision nutrition and what's coming in the following years in this field. So thank you very much, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Josep Maria. Is certainly, despite the time of the day or the night. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. I want to thank the team for your invitation, the Preventomics team, for your invitation to be part of this final conference. And I recognize that I am preaching to the choir because we all believe on personalized or precision nutrition, and that is what brought us here together for you for a few years already. And what I wanted is to give you, Josep Maria gave already a kind of historical perspective, a brief historical perspective of the field. And I am going to do a more in-depth perspective of this past, present, and future of precision nutrition. Okay, let me see if I can pass the slides. Okay, so if, for example, we visit today the web page of the nutrition school here at Tufts, this is what we see. Food is medicine. Well, I mean, this is a very catchy statement, but it's just that. It's food is just a medicine, and I think we all agree that it's beyond that, because food is associated with family, with cultural aspects of our lives, with pleasure, with sharing. Food has always been also a way to identify different culture, different traditions. And I mean, we have to admit that food is also a big business, right? That in fact today is practically taken by big multinational companies, 9 of them. And here you can see what the consumer is confronted with when it goes to the supermarket or go to do an Amazon order or whatever, right? So food is complex, no doubt. And then here you come, Preventomics, which embraces some of these aspects and adds precisely this omics, the use of the new omic science in order to provide that that personalization that is really required in order to achieve the goals of nutrition and health. So in terms of the past, I mean, these are numbers that we all say in our talks, we read about the importance of nutrition in terms of mortality, in terms of disability, and so on. But although it may look very simple to say, okay, just have good nutrition. What is good nutrition? And because many people may not know what that means. For example, here in the US, every 5 years since 1980, we have the dietary guideline for Americans, which it just brings up what is new, what is known, and what is new in the previous 5 years in order to provide these publications that the USDA and the HHS, the Health and Human Services, which are responsible for these dietary guidelines, they don't expect for the public to read these. These are designed for people in the government that have to define public health policies, and they are designed for nutritionists, dietitians, and physicians, health professionals that have to understand at that level what good nutrition means. And for the public, well, for the public, from the USDA, we have the traditional pyramid that came years and years ago and later replaced by My Plate. Okay, so that sounds very good. But as Josep Maria was saying, well, this is the reality. It's just that despite all this, chronic diseases are increasing, here represented by obesity. And the predictions are even worse. So what is clear is that the status quo, these global nutrition recommendations are not having the expected benefits. Moreover, people don't look at the night plate or food pyramid. They go to the magazines or they go to internet and say, okay, so what is a good diet? And in the best case scenario, they go, for example, to US News and World Report and they look at what is good to eat. And well, it's not too bad because, for example, here the best diet overall for 2022 is the Mediterranean diet. Okay, we agree. That sounds good. It's a good recommendation. But anyway, despite all this that I am telling you, we know the situation around us with obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease. And let's keep in mind that even the world leading experts don't agree. And for example, if we go to a few of these nutrition experts that are part of the Dietary Guidelines Committee, as we did in this real experiment, if everybody was in agreement about what is good and what is bad, we'll have this kind of grading. I think here we have about 120 different foods. And if we ask the experts to say, okay, what is bad, what is good, so what is bad will be in the red area, what is good will be in the green area. Well, I mean, this is theoretical. When we did that in real life, and yeah, these are 105 food items, we asked these experts what is good, what is bad, and we see that in reality, things are a little bit more confusing than what it will be in an ideal world in terms of how the nutrition experts consider what foods are better and what foods are worse. Obviously, there is an alignment, but you can see that in the middle, depending on who you ask, it will tell you eat it or don't eat it. So going back to that figure of obesity, as we saw that brings us to a society that looks like the figure in the lower left panel. And in that society, we have many members that say, well, I want to fix the problem. How should I do it? And they have a huge wall in front of them, low carb, the blood diet, the fat-free, and hundreds of different possibilities. And, it's just like throwing the towel. What should I do? But the problem is not only the obese person, it's also the health professional. They say, okay, well, I tried the best that I can, and I cannot achieve what I want to achieve with the patient or with the patient or the patient or the individual that is in front of this professional. So that's what we have in the present. So that brings us to imprecision nutrition, in which the people in the street, they look at the news or they go to the bookstore and does all kind of different things that in some cases are relatively proven, some cases are not. And this is probably the root of the problem. And this is not the solution, but at least it shows the problem. These diet feeds from my colleague and friend Christopher Garner in Stanford, here in the picture, that took a bunch of people, and for 1 year, he put them on a low-fat or a low-carb diet. That's some of the most popular. Okay, so when you take the results at the end of 1 year, and you do the typical thing, you calculate the mean, you do the ANOVA or whatever analysis you do, or the t-test, so well, it doesn't matter if people eat low fat or low carb. But this is based on the mean. And who is the mean? Very few people are in the mean, because if we take the reality of the result of diet fit individual by individual, we can see on the left panel, these were people now low-fat diet. Well, some people did very well losing weight. Some people increased weight. And then the same applies to the low carbohydrate diet. Some people gained, some people lost. And I can tell you, to the people that are on this upper part of the curve, the ones that increase weight, or the ones that didn't change the weight, they didn't care about the mean. They care about themselves. And so it's true for the health professional. So we have to do something about that. And that's where brings us to the future, that in fact is already the past, because we have to go from the imprecision nutrition to the precision nutrition. And something that really made a big splash is this viewpoint published in JAMA by Griffin Rogers, who is the director of the NHLBI, and Francis Collins, that was the director of NIH. And here, in just 2 pages, set the stage for the future of nutrition. And that you don't even have to read the 2 pages. You just go to the title, Precision Nutrition, the answer to what to eat to stay healthy. So a total departure of the status quo of nutrition so far. Okay, but we knew that. That was in 2020, but we knew that there was an interaction between genes and diet and our response in terms of lipids, in terms of glucose, in terms of practically any outcome that you are looking at. And that's something that we started, and we were part of that figure that José María showed at the beginning in terms of decades ago, there was just a trickle of publications. Well, this is one of them, for example, in which we demonstrated that common polymorphism in the apolipoprotein A1 gene had an interaction with dietary fat in terms of how people were responding to plasma LDL cholesterol levels. And but those were the baby steps. And at that point, probably we were naive, we were optimistic, and we thought, wow, I mean, in a couple of years, we'll be running. What happened is that the baby steps and those stairs became huge mountains. And then the trek towards personalization of diets became more difficult. But we have some of these publications through those years that just made us move forward and solidify the field in order to create that atmosphere that drove that viewpoint from Francis Collins and company. So, in fact, Josep María read from this personal nutrition and health article in the British Medical Journal, but there were quite a few other interesting articles during these past few years. Some of them in an aspect that I will touch, such as chrononutrition, and some of them, like this from Predimed, in which we demonstrated that we could prevent heart events, in this case, a stroke, giving the proper diet to the proper individual. And so we were not only after lowering LDL cholesterol or lowering glucose or whatever, we demonstrated that we could really prevent disease, even in people, in elderly people. So very important message. So I will skip this because that's precisely what you are doing. This integration and processing to provide the personalized advice. And this is part also of Preventomics. On the left, we have more the human side. On the right, we have the data side of the equation. And that brings us more to the present with Predict. Predict was and is a large study that I think points out about how we should be doing this kind of research in the future. And that's the way that you are doing this research in the present already. So this is a consortium of different universities, King's College London, Mass General Hospital here, Stanford University, you saw Christopher Garner earlier, Harvard, Tufts, and Zoe. And Zoe is a artificial intelligence company that puts everything together and is able to process the information. So it's nutrition, academia, plus tech companies, the ones that are going to drive that future, most probably. We started a few years ago in 2018 with Predict 1, and then we moved to Predict 2, and now we are in Predict 3. And in every case, as you see, we increased the populations. At the beginning, it was primarily based on the UK, and then we moved into the US. And the idea, it was, and you can see how parallel and similar this is to Preventomics, is using the different omics, investigate how much variability exists between people. We saw examples of that already in diet feeds, and we can see it in every single study, including obviously yours. What explains that those differences, and that's key, and then how, using that artificial intelligence, we can then predict based on those characteristics of individual characteristics, how people are going to respond. And we enter obviously into the region of big data. In the case of Predict 1, that was the smallest of all the different predict phases. Well, 32,000 muffins were consumed, over 100,000 meals were logged, almost 1 million of metabolomic measures, 2 million of glucose readings, and then so on and so forth. You get the idea, and you know what I mean perfectly well. The variability, we focus on the postprandial state. I think we can gain so much more information from the postprandial state versus the fasting state, that we focus on studying that variability. And we demonstrated that indeed the variability in the postprandial state is more than in the fasting state, which is great in order to kind of bring up that individuality that we are looking for and the differences. We published that in Nature Medicine, and also obviously we put our attention on the microbiome. It couldn't be any other way these days. And yeah, we identify good bugs and bad bugs, and it was rewarding to see the connections, because those good bugs and bad bugs were also correlated or associated with other healthy measures of, with other measures that were healthy of health and diet. For example, the blood fat, the blood sugar, the inflammation, the body fat, but also the different dietary patterns. So everything was moving in the right direction, which is good. And we published that also in Nature Medicine. So what are the multiple causes of the variability in responses? Well, it depends on what you are looking at. If you look at triglycerides, you can see, for example, surprise, surprise, that serum lipids are important. Whereas, for example, genetics, to our a little bit dismay and disappointment, they didn't have too much relevance, right? Microbiome was important, but so many other things, what we eat, the age, the sex, and very important, meal context. Meal context is also important, and that was magnified also when we look at glucose as an outcome. And in that case, genetics was more important, microbiome had similar importance to triglycerides, excuse me, and I mean the usual players, age and so on. So this is, based on these causes of variability, we were able to then create prediction models that at this point are able to predict almost between 70 and 80% of the variability in individuals. So we are getting there. Slowly but surely we are getting there. An aspect, meal context could be interpreted in many ways. Like, for example, the third slide that I showed you, how we eat with friends, with family, that's a meal context. and it will be very different than, eating a sandwich while we run or we drive from one meeting to another. That inflammation and many other factors surely will be different. But also, some of our research has focused on timing, on chrononutrition, and specifically precision chrononutrition. And this is part of our developmental history. If we look at what we eat at the first days, weeks, or months of our lives, that food is based on chrononutrition. The mother's milk, the breast milk, has different composition in different times of the day to adapt, to train the biological clock and adapt. For example, it will be good to have tryptophan in higher amount at certain times of the day, or melatonin in others, in order to, for example, favor sleep. And that's what has been happening in mammals for millions of years. However, we have disrupted that, and yes, either we go to formulas in which we have disrupted entirely, or we go to just saving milk for another time, the excess of milk. And it's true, we put the day, but we don't put in the label, at least I don't know of many people that put the time of the extraction. So the baby could be getting breast milk that was taken in the morning, in the evening, and that probably is not good news for the parents during that night. And in terms of, this has been shown very nicely many years ago already, the difference in terms of sleep variables in formula or breast milk. Everything looks much better for breast milk in terms of the traditional sleep measures. And if we go to the other side of the equation, meaning aging, the elderly, unfortunately, our biorhythms with age, they kind of get dampened, flattened. That's not good news. And also they get moved towards later time in the day. So, and that's not good either. So we have during the day, we have a sleepiness, and during the night, well, we cannot fall asleep. And very nice experiments also have shown that, for example, if you enrich cereal with tryptophan, you are able to improve the quality of your sleep, or the sleep in the elderly. So, yes, chrononutrition is very important for many aspects of our lives, including that one so important as is a good night of sleep. And we have been working for quite a few years with my collaborator Marta Garaulet in Murcia, which precisely these days is also here in Boston. And we did using a weight loss program that she has been working on for many years in her clinics. The weight program is just based on Mediterranean diet and group meetings and so on. And then we noticed that people were losing weight at different rates, or with more or less success, no surprise, based on what all we know. And then we did something, what defines that some people are more or less successful, despite the fact that eat the same. So we went to the time factor. And yes, this is what we found. People that ate later in the day, the main meal, in Spain at least, they lost less weight than those that ate earlier. And we went further into that, and we say, okay, well, same age, so that's not going to influence. In terms of other health outcomes, HOMA was better in the people that ate earlier. In terms of the chronotype, whether they are morning or evening people, well, the people that ate earlier were morning type, more morning type individuals, no surprise. And it's also interesting that there is something genetic about these chronotypes, whether you are an early, an owl, or a lark. It has to do with genetics, because when we look at the frequency, allele frequency, or genotype frequencies of the clock gene, they were also different. So it's part societal and it's part genetic. Like everything that we touch is partly genetics, partly environmental. So the idea here will say, okay, well, let's put everybody, let's move everybody to eat earlier. And that will be an easy solution, but I don't know if it will be an easy solution because people have their habits. But the question is, it will be effective? And the answer is no, because it depends on something else, which is the genetics of individual. And in this case, we are not talking about the clock genetics, we are talking about something else. In this case, we have been looking at this gene for many years. The perilipin-1 gene is the gene that is more highly expressed in the adipocyte. What it does, the gene product, it just surrounds the adipocyte and then prevents the lipases of metabolizing the triglycerides and releasing the fat. So what we did is, okay, let's look at this genotype in terms of what the experiment that we saw before. And look how interesting, because if you are a T carrier, time is not very important. It doesn't matter if you eat earlier, you eat late, the weight loss, you manage to lose weight. However, if you have the genotype that is AA, look at the dramatic difference between eating late and eating early in terms of weight loss. So yes, chrononutrition is important, but even more important will be precision chrononutrition, in which you can also get the additional benefit of tailoring the time to your genes. That applies to this program, and probably it will apply also to time-restricted eating and so many variants that exist today in terms of chrononutrition. And I mean, last week, for example, there was a paper in the New England Journal of Medicine that said, well, this restricted eating is worthless. Well, maybe it was worthless based on the mean. Worthless no means that they didn't make too much of significant difference in terms of not restricting the time of eating. So it may be the same thing that we saw in diet fits at the beginning of the talk. It's just that we took the mean and we said, well, it doesn't matter. But if we took these individuals and we did a careful genetic study, probably we'll find some interesting results like the ones that we are showing here. Okay, so the moment that you input the time factor and so on, immediately brings to your brain the fact that you have to collect data more often than we tend to collect data in the traditional academic experiments. In fact, we should be collecting data continuously, and that the solution for that will be based on wearables. And in the same way that omics have made a huge progress over time, the same applies to wearables. We are not there yet, as we are not there yet for personalized nutrition. And that's something that also you have incorporated into Preventomics. So a lot of nice things in our future in terms of these sensors. How we incorporate the sensors in many ways. Here, the intelligent watches or rings that we have already, the addition of cameras to our attire, right? For example, number 2 here, there is a camera that is watching what in front of us in terms of food, and then other wearables that detect how often we move our arm to put food in our mouth and other sensors, like the ones that we are developing here, also at Tufts, in which we'll be able to see what is going through our mouth and how many times we chew. This will create a wireless body area network that will be connected to the cloud, and then the cloud will be connected to our medical record in terms of medical and genetic record, and the same way will connect it to the health professionals, machine learning, and so on. So this is how we envision our future. But we are complicated. We have seen this. We know that. But food is complicated. And yes, it's true that our camera will be taking the picture of the apple that we are going to eat, or the salad, or I don't know, or the burger. But do we understand the food that we eat? And the answer is not. And the last few years, we are seeing how it is the dark matter of nutrition, in which we know probably no more than 10% of what we are eating. And that's why the Rockefeller Foundation, in connection with the American Heart Association, has started this huge project of the Periodic Table of Food Initiative, in which we'll be precisely analyzing in depth the foods that we eat. And we will not stop in, oh, this is such percent of carbohydrate, protein, and fat, and these minerals, these vitamins. No, we'll go into the thousands of compounds, many of them bioactives that are part of our foods. And we are developing some software in order to precisely match these food compounds, new food compounds that we are identifying, in how that matches, for example, with the drugs that pharma is using. So we can then, yes, use food as medicine, because they will replace those drugs based on these bioactives. We talk about Predict, but let's not forget this new initiative that came out from that paper from Francis Collins and Jama, which is the $170 million that are being put in the study of precision nutrition and different. This is a consortium, in this case only within the US, of different universities that will be working together towards precisely the same objective of Predict and the same objective that you have in Preventomics. There will be 3 phases, and the population will be extracted from all of us, which is 1 million people study. That is a longitudinal study in the US. So people will be receiving these meal challenges, in order to characterize the postprandial response, and the intensity of the intervention will increase, but the number of people will be decreasing, obviously, because of that intensity, and people will be put on different diets. We'll see, based on measurements of everything that we know how to measure, and then with different diets, but taken at home. And then finally, a subgroup of individuals will be in the metabolic unit for weeks, in the different metabolic units for weeks, having different diets and having all kind of testing. So this is part of that future, and we'll see what happens in 2027 in terms of the progress that we have been able to make in terms of precision nutrition. And with this, it's time to say goodbye. Thank you for your attention, and again, thank you to all of you for the work that you have done and for making a participant of this final event.
Thank you very much, Professor Ordovás. It's been an excellent presentation, and we have had the pleasure to see what's going on and what's next to come. So it's time for questions now. We have like 5 minutes. If someone has questions, we will try to get into them. By now, Professor Ordovás, I'd like to ask you, we have seen during Preventomics that the psychological aspects of nutrition, behavioral change strategies, and are really, really important when trying to get positive outcomes from these strategies. So what's your opinion? What do you think? That is it included in these projects you are talking about? Are you considering this aspect?
Thank you for that question, José Maria. And I should say that the more I get into biology and into those omics, the more I realize how much emphasis we should put into the psychological aspect. How to measure that psychological aspect? That is difficult because then we have to go to the traditional questionnaires that are not precisely top-notch hard data, right? We are trying to develop some wearables that based on the levels, for example, of, I don't know, cortisol and things like that, bring us a little bit, not just the psychological aspects per se, but the stress, which is part of the psychology. And that's why I made emphasis on the meal context also, because meal context includes also the psychological aspects of eating and the eater. And I had that discussion yesterday precisely based on, of course, on something that appeared in social media about the importance of taste, about the importance of smell also as part of the healthy or unhealthy effects of food. So all these things have to be taken into consideration. And that's why also I brought that first slide about food is medicine. If we just take food as dry and bitter medicine, food will not have beneficial effects. It has to be surrounded by that psychological component of the individual that we have to take much more care than what we have been taking so far, because we have been blinded by the light of omics. Oh, suddenly we can do epigenomics, metabolomics, genomics. Wow, that's great. And we are going to solve everything, please, plus, right? Is that other aspect of the mind that we have as part of that feature. So it's great that you brought up that comment because yes, that's definitely part of the door that we have to open and cross if we want to really get to personalized nutrition.
Thank you. There are some questions coming. For example, you were talking about these sensors of different hormones related with the stress, and they are asking about other measurements such as dopamine, cortisol, and other known molecules related with the stress. Is it what you were referring to?
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. Again, if you look at, as you have probably done, if you look at the literature of biosensors, my goodness, it looks great. It looks like tomorrow we could start applying that, right? However, it's different to have a published academic paper and to have something that can work in real life. So I am not, whereas for some biological measures like heart rate and number of steps and even glucose, we are doing that now. When it comes, for example, measures of how many times you chew the food, but even the aspect of taking picture of what you eat and translating to nutrients and so on, that is still complicated. So the future is bright, but the future is future in terms of a real application. And again, we cannot, Apple Watch, they have been trying to bring up glucose measurements to the watch for years. And every year, oh, next year. No. And we still keep using the CGMs that are not totally non-invasive, and they have a limited lifetime, right? So very promising. The concept is great. We have to work on that concept to make it to reality, but it's not a reality that will happen this year. But again, that's why there are so many bright people working on them to make them a reality.
Okay, thank you. So another question coming from the audience. They ask, could you comment on the current state of the art in using predictions on having health benefits? In other words, are the algorithms already used in practice to show that it works in real life, let's say, in real practice?
The first algorithms that are being taken to the test are precisely the ones that I have provided in my lecture with Predict. But still, it's work in progress. There are many algorithms based either on CGN measures alone, microbiome alone, genetics alone, and I mean, you know all that already. But I have my reservations about calling that precision nutrition or personalized nutrition, because you are looking through such narrow window that you are not able to see 360 degrees, and that's what we need. And that will come from, yes, the integration of the different omics, that's what you are doing, from much larger experiments, but that requires much larger budgets. And I trust that one of the problems that is the length of the experiments, that will have to go to years. It can be accelerated by precisely focusing on the postprandial state with different challenges, measuring many things. So that is my hope. Because otherwise, to put everything together using the traditional epidemiological study will take us into the next generations of investigators, which is great because they will have something to do, but probably people like solutions before that.
Yes, for sure. Because one of the problems, I think, or one of the obstacles is the need for long times in this field, in the field of nutrition. So you need to follow up large cohorts for a very long time. And this is actually really difficult because of, as you mentioned, budget constraints. In this sense, and since you have this view of what's going on in the United States, what's the opinion or of the administration regarding these approaches? Is it supporting these kind of initiatives? Is it considered from the health systems reliable way of improving health, or is just considered as something under research and left to the, let's say, midterm future?
Well, that Nutrition for Precision Health initiative that I described in the last part of the slide shows that the administration is supporting that. However, yes, very supportive. They believe on the concept. They think that it could be a good investment. However, $170 million sounds like a huge amount of money, and it is. But if you compare with other things, I mean, one of the one of the yachts that we see in the news nowadays, for example, they cost $600–700 million. And let's put that in perspective. 5-year plan of an entire country in order to solidify nutrition, precision nutrition, and you have $170 million. Well, and the reality, and we are suffering that in the planning period that we have now, is that we say, okay, we have, I don't remember how many centers, 20 centers, 5 years, and we have to feed and analyze millions of samples. $170 million doesn't even give you enough money for 1 year, and you have to operate with that for 5 years. So yes, there is support, but there is not enough support. And let's keep in mind that in 2027, when this cycle of the project ends, we'll be able to, using the artificial intelligence, to say, okay, now we can predict the response of people. But we have not demonstrated that that will work in the real life yet. Because now is when we have to take, based on those predictions, for the following 5 years, if the funding is allocated, we'll have to put people with different characteristics on different diets and say, okay, great, it works. And that's why we cannot rely on single efforts. And that's why your effort has to be part of the other efforts, and everything, like kind of a meta-analysis, come out with the solution faster. Any single country, any single project will not bring us real personalized nutrition.
Okay. Thank you very much. There are some more questions, but we are running out of time, and it's a real pity, but we have to move on. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to have you here and have this glance to precision nutrition and what's going on there. I hope you have a good night from now, and let's keep in touch and working in personalized nutrition. Hopefully we will get some very nice results. We are eager to see what's happened with this project in 2027. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so let's continue. Let's see if I can share my screen. Okay. Now that we have gone through this outstanding presentation, let's go back to the Preventomics project. We have with us Dr. Biotza Gutiérrez. Good morning. She's going, thank you. She's going to present an overview of the project with the different results. So the floor is yours, Biotza.
Thank you, Josep. Okay, should be working now. So thank you very much, and I really would like to welcome. It's a pleasure to have such a high audience, and really welcome you to our final conference. What I'm going to do is just give an overview on how Preventomics was designed now almost 3.5 years ago. And then I will also touch a bit on the different results that then you will see in the other sessions over the morning. I think not much to say here. My colleague Josep already introduced it. But the thing is how, knowing Preventomics, we apply or try to apply this personalized nutrition approach, and very really thoughtful latest comments made by Professor Ordovás, that this should be a bit of something bigger in order to really have end with solutions. But in any case, in our case, what we did is we measured different biomarkers in different biological samples in the interventions. And what we did is we combined classical biomarkers, so biomarkers that are already applied in clinical practice, with other biomarkers that are well characterized and that can be correlated somehow with the specific alteration in the metabolism. But this is not enough. So on top of this metabolism layer, we added also genetic background. We added and integrated information coming from nutritional status, from physical activities, other information, because we wanted to have a more holistic and complete characterization of the people. Next step, the way we design it is that, and challenges a lot, is how this Preventomics, this core of the project, could be integrated into third-party applications, and we wanted somehow to validate if it's possible to end up in applying different business model. And for this, we counted with different companies in the consortium that were working somehow in this field, and that there was applying our approach. And finally, I ended with different intervention studies to overall assess and demonstrate. The results of these studies will be explained later on this morning. So Preventomics has generated several results, but I would like to highlight now it's a touch a bit is in some of them, maybe those that could be considered more the key exploitable results. And we can start with this health status modeling, which is a modular model that combines the signature of different metabolic signatures and that allows us to classify the person in terms of their metabolic status. And then in the project, we have combined it with this genetic background in order to create what we call this Preventomics decision support system. And then you will hear also later on in the morning how this is really applied, the type of information that this decision support system has given, and how it has been applied. Apart from this, what we have also worked on as a valuable input is a consumption biomarkers model in order to have a more objective and more comprehensive assessment of the dietary patterns. And then on the other hand, we've been also working in trying to have a better understanding on the microbiome signature on the population study in the project. One of the main outcomes of the project is what we call the M-Food platform, which is finally the platform that allows to start from biomarkers and end up in food recommendations. And this means this platform, what it has is it has behind all the decision support system that I've mentioned before, but then on top we add information that has come from food categories, that has nutritional advice, that it is the entry point also for the users, for the nutritionists that have been working in the project. The place where you can feel the user could feel different questionnaires. So it's the overall output of the project and the platform that has been used in the different intervention studies. Then we have specific results that come from the different companies, or from the different companies that have been participating in the project. On one hand, this behavioral change program, which is a coaching program that aims to try to change habits of people, and by delivering the behavioral change prompts, small steps that complement the other recommendation that the people have given in the intervention studies. And then 3 different tools, software products. On one hand, a dynamic personalized nutrition software that has integrated the Preventomics know-how, and that allows a communication with the professional, communication between the professional and the person. Another result which is a site that would allow, based on the Preventomics feedback and know-how, to have a more personalized, shopping experience. And finally, another result which is more related to trying to personalize food manufacturing in the liver. This business model that is growing of delivery, food delivery. Finally, other results that we have produced relate to functional ingredients. The objective of them is to modulate the health beneficial effects of the personalized nutrition. And then 3 additional results that have accompanied the whole project and the different interventions, and that try to, at the same time, analyze and assess the quality of life of the people that have participated in the studies, to assess the cost effectiveness of the interventions, and then have also a more holistic and systematic evaluation of the viability, feasibility of the interventions using this health technology assessment model. Let me briefly comment the different intervention studies that we have. We have deployed them in 4 different countries. The business model more related to personalized delivery meal has been led by the Copenhagen University and the company SimpleFeast, and then with the participation of company Carinsa. The second study has been carried out in Southampton University, and then in Jagiellonian University in Poland and in UK, and they have been using the software for professionals developed by the company Meteda. And finally, another study carried out in Spain that has been done in cooperation between the supermarket Aldi and Eurecat. You can see that in all of them we have applied this behavioral change developed by company Omni. And just to end my presentations, thank you. The great consortium that we have. The results that you will see later on have been possible thanks to this interdisciplinary consortium that counts with top research institutions, but also with the involvement of the industry, and then take into account feedback and from consumers, from patients, and with the contribution of other very relevant entities. And I have to say that a very committed consortium take into account the difficulties and the challenges that we have during these last 2 years. And it's really great to be here in now presenting the results of the project. So this is all from my side. I hope you really enjoy the next sessions. And once more, thank you very much for attending the final conference.
Okay, thank you, Biotza. Now we will have some minutes for a break if you want to go for a coffee, and we will restart at 10:30, so we have a short break today. So let's see you later.